What's going on, everyone? We are looking at a pretty good green day. The market's pretty happy today. I'm going to explain why. We did just receive PCE data, and September rate cuts are looking more and more likely. I also want to talk about some Iris Energy news, or Iren stock. We're going to look at the chart as well. And we have a city now announcing that they're going to be adding Bitcoin spot ETFs to their pension fund. But let's get started, guys. If you get something useful out of this, you know what to do. And just look at the market today, a stark contrast from yesterday and the day before. It is literally a sea of green. And crypto and the Bitcoin miners are looking at a similar day as well. Now, why is the market so happy? Well, we just received PCE, and this is the Fed's preferred measure of inflation, or gauge of inflation. And June's inflation numbers showed further progress in reaching the Fed's 2% goal. Headline was a 0.1 month-over-month increase, while being a 2.5 year-over-year increase. And core was a 0.2 month-over-month increase, and a 2.6% year-over-year increase. The unemployment rate has ticked up recently, and job openings have declined as well. This is forcing the Fed to focus on more than just slowing inflation, but also keeping the economy afloat, keeping things essentially from breaking. And with the Fed keeping a close eye on these labor market developments, the Fed is also now likely to use the meeting next week to set the stage for a September rate cut. It's going to be really important to hear what they say. Are we going to see a dovish Fed at the next meeting? And as said by Greg Walensky, the head of the U.S. fixed income at Janus Henderson Investors, this week's data continues to strengthen our view that the first cut will come in September. We are expecting a dovish hold at next week's Fed meeting, with Powell signaling during the press conference that a first cut is likely to occur fairly soon if the data continues to evolve as they expect. Now, changing pace a bit, looking at some recent news here. Ferrari is going to be launching crypto payments in Europe after the US success. And in 2023, Ferrari did allow crypto payments for its cars in the US, and now they're planning to expand to Europe because of this success. So maybe at the end of this bull run, take profits by buying a Ferrari. I'll leave this article if you want to look more into it. That's pretty much it. That's the story. Also, apparently Kamala Harris snubs the Bitcoin event, and the Winklevoss twins are a bit pissed off at her. Tyler Winklevoss reacted to the news of Kamala Harris's decision not to participate in the 2024 Bitcoin conference in Nashville. David Bailey, the CEO of Bitcoin Magazine and the event organizer, revealed that a major Democratic donor informed him that Harris privately said, "Bitcoin is money for criminals." Winklevoss claps back, saying, "The Biden-Harris administration wages all-out war in the crypto industry for 4 years. Despite all this, Kamala is still invited to the Bitcoin conference and given a chance to speak to our industry and reset the relationship. But what does she do? She declines. She can't even take the first step and show up to start mending fences. Our industry won't forget this. We will show no mercy in November." Alright, now I want to talk about this pension fund that's going to be investing into Bitcoin ETFs. The Jersey City mayor said Thursday that the city's pension fund will invest in Bitcoin ETFs. You guys might remember I covered this news, but in May, the state of Wisconsin revealed that it owned 163 million worth of spot Bitcoin ETFs, and they have been loading up. Now, this Jersey City mayor, what does he think about Bitcoin? Well, he says basically what I said a couple days ago. Bitcoin is here to stay. It is not going away. And to quote his words, the question on whether Bitcoin and crypto is here to stay, sorry, I interchanged that, but whether it's here to stay is largely over, and crypto and Bitcoin won. I've been a long time believer through the ups and downs in crypto, but broadly, beyond crypto, I do believe blockchain is amongst the most important new technology innovations since the internet. And Eric Balchunas on these institutionals getting in, what does he think? Normally, you don't get these big fish institutions in the 13Fs for a year or so, usually when the ETF gets more liquidity. But as we've seen, these are no ordinary launches. Good sign, expect more, as institutions tend to move in herds. Now, we do have a recent announcement from Iren stock. I'll leave this down below for you, but basically, they announced an increase in their power capacity at the Childress site in Texas from a 600 megawatt to 750. This additional 150 megawatts puts them all the way up to 2,310 in total. Now, I do want to go over Iren's chart. Some people have been asking about it. As I've said, 8 and 6 are still possibilities. I think 6 is a bit unlikely, but possible. If we see more fear from Mt. Gox, if we see Bitcoin fall a little more than we expect, I definitely think Iren could see the 6s, perhaps even lower, perhaps the bottom of this trend line. But look at this long-term trend line that we have been following since the beginning of the bull run, since the very beginning here, back in December of 2022. We used it as a base, we bounced off it again, and we kind of use this area, this general direction. We are going in this general upwards and right direction. We had a breakout. Things were starting to look very good for Iren. There's a lot of hype. There's a lot of bullish analyst price targets. What did we start seeing? We saw a bearish divergence. We saw the price rising while the RSI was dropping. Momentum was waning. We also began seeing an increase in volume on the sell side. Iren is now under $10. I think it's a good add here. If you want to be a little more patient, I do think you can find it cheaper. But looking long term, I think this is a solid add here. If Bitcoin just starts rallying out of nowhere, you might miss lower prices for Iren. How I'm looking at this is I'm going to be patient. Many of us took advantage of 2022 and 2023 and 2024. A lot of us are looking at it as you're a little late in the cycle if you're buying now. That's not to say there aren't more gains, but to expect like a 5x from here, a 10x from here, I think that's a little unrealistic at this point. It's possible, I guess, a 5x from Iren, among many other Bitcoin miners, a 10x perhaps for even smaller market caps. But what you got to realize, the time to get in was 2022, 2023. As we get farther into the cycle, the multiples are going to be lower and lower. So if Iren does get down to 8, get down to 6, I do think that'll be the last time that we see those low prices until we get into the bear market a year and a half from now. Now, before I go, I want to show you guys something very interesting that I noticed, a little bit troublesome actually. We'll see what happens of it. We'll see, maybe the market ignores it completely. Maybe it doesn't play out, but we have seen this before. Bearish divergence on the SPY on the weekly chart, longer time frame. Look at what we saw back here in 2020. We were seeing the price rise. RSI was cooling down. This was right before our huge crash. We saw big bearish RSI divergence here. Again, right here in 2021, the end of 2021, we were seeing prices rising. We were seeing the RSI cool down. Momentum was waning. What happened? We dropped pretty hard from there. What are we seeing now, guys? We are seeing another bearish RSI divergence. The RSI is cooling down. The price is rising. Maybe the market doesn't care. Maybe this is another repeat of the past here, and we see a huge drop. Keep in mind, we're approaching rate cuts. Typically, rate cuts are because of a failing economy. This time around, it's because hopefully the Fed's job has completed and inflation is now in control. Under control, I should say. I would hope inflation isn't in control. But I do think the overall market is due for a bit of a breather. It has ran quite a lot. If you look at since November 2023, the SPY is up like 30%. That's pretty massive in that short of a time frame. And it's definitely reasonable to expect some corrections, expect some potentially major pullbacks even along the way. And one thing I'm watching is this general direction. If we break this trend line, we might see some pain. There's also another trend line to keep an eye on that might be a little more, the market might react on more. We did kind of bounce off it. Keep an eye on this. Looks like a, ascending wedge. That looks like a clear ascending wedge. These are typically a bearish pattern. We definitely could fall, get more towards the EMAs. When you get so far away from moving averages and EMAs, typically the market wants to retrace to them. And we are definitely a bit far away from these moving averages. But how are you guys feeling about the Bitcoin miners today? It's nice to see a little recovery. Who knows, maybe we end the day red. We are entering the weekend after all. How do you feel about the general market? Do you think the SPY, QQQ, etc. are in the process of topping out here? Or is the bull run going to continue into these rate cuts by the Fed? I personally think we are going to see a rotation, and we've been beginning to see that. The market in general getting out of larger caps and going into smaller caps. As we get these rate cuts, that does help these smaller market cap companies that need to acquire high interest rate debt right now. Instead, when the rates go low, they get to acquire debt at a lower interest rate, and that does benefit them. And hey, these rate cuts are partly why these small caps have been so destroyed over the last years anyways. But let me know how you feel about the economy. Let me know how you feel about the stock market. Are we topping out here? And how do you guys think this will affect Bitcoin? Will Bitcoin still follow its 4-year cycle if we did see a market crash? Will Bitcoin still rally from here, peak out somewhere in 2025, regardless of what the broader market does? Thanks as always for watching, guys, and enjoy your weekend.